Hi everyone, welcome to the Superhuman Switch, a mind, body, business empowering podcast guaranteed to switch your superhuman levels on. I'm your host, Saf. Today I'm joined with Tima. Tima is the first Lebanese woman to climb Mountain Everest in 2019. The first Lebanese woman to ski the final degree of the South Pole, and by this, she finishes the seven summits, which is the highest mountains in the seven continents. Tima is not only a mountaineer and a mountain climber, she is a mission-driven founder. She founded Mountain Gipsy for coaching. She founded
Feministiya.
Feministiya for a sustainable fashion brand. And she wrote Curly Adventures, which is a book written for kids to encourage them to believe that they can achieve anything they set their minds to. So, Tima, I'm super excited to have you on the podcast.
And I'm very happy to be here.
That's really exciting, and I don't know honestly from where to start, but the only thing that I can say that my daughter and I yesterday, we read your book, Mount Everest, Girly Adventure, and she asked me a simple question to ask you. Okay. Is Milo real?
I knew it. I've done a lot of book readings in school, and that's the question. Was Milo really with her? Like, what kind of animal it is? Is it what is it a squirrel? And I'm like, okay, so it's a marmot.
Okay.
And marmots usually live on altitude. They survive on high altitudes.
Okay.
So they're usually good climbers. So Milo is not real, no. It's a character in the story because I wanted to do I put my real story into the book, but I wanted to make it children friendly. I wanted to do it entertaining, and I wanted to bring that teamwork and friendship and like all those elements that children might go through in school about friends. And Milo was my friend in the story, and Milo is really so. I did have a friend on the mountain,
Okay.
so I made him as a marmot instead of a human because I thought it's cuter.
I love it. Actually, yeah, I spent some time yesterday to discuss it with her, and she loved the idea and how basically we look into the challenges, and not as an adult, as a kid, when they have this kind of an aspiration, and they think, okay, am I able to do it? Do I need to check with my family, my parents, my mom, my dad? And the way the story was told is really inspiring in the way that you have imagination, and you have basically a key challenge, and in the same time, you went through the journey with all the ups and downs with it. So this is, I think, is a very good starting point to see how Tima basically, she realized that she's an adventurer. And of course, this how applies not only the amazing achievements you've done recently, which is last December, congratulations.
Thank you.
And of course, that having an impact on the other things that you do, because you are a mission-driven founder, and all your mission now is, of course, to educate not only coaching, but at least for the kids, because I've seen some amazing activities you're discussing with the kids how they can achieve anything they set.
That's definitely true. I mean, climbing mountains is definitely a privilege, and I'm very lucky to have had that kind of life and chosen that kind of life. And the fact that I have followed my dream despite everything that I had to lose and gain throughout the journey. And being here today, I quit my career job and my corporate job, and I focused on what I want. And I really think the mountains have taught me so much. And I was progressing in such a strong way, and my mind was functioning in a different way throughout the 8 years. And the only thing, it would only be unfair not to share this with the world. And I do those things, then I really want to see a better world. I think we all have responsibility to make this world better. When it comes to my woman empowerment side, I'm doing what I'm doing because women in history have fought so hard. There's a lot of women who had to die for that reason, for them to pave the way for us to continue. And we all have the responsibility to continue paving the way for others. نفس الشيء with the children. So children are focusing sometimes on different things, and parents are struggling, and there's so much happening, and sometimes the parents have already embedded thoughts or beliefs in their head, or an idea of what their child wants to be.
That's true.
And I struggled with that because my parents also struggled with that from their parents. Yani, the more you go backwards, at least in the Middle East, the more you realize it was a really rigid, fixed mindset. This is what we expect you to be. This is where you're going. And if not, then you have the type of parents who's going to be, okay, but I'm going to be a little upset. And you have the type of parents that I will not talk to you anymore. It's
Wow.
done.
Yeah.
And uh, and yeah, for me, I just want this book. I love the fact that you read it with your daughter, because it shows you that you cannot label your daughter or like have a vision for her and expect her to be on that road.
Mm-hmm.
Let her dream, let her try, let her tackle things in different way, and she needs all her five senses needs to be activated
Absolutely.
until she figures out what she wants. And when she wants that, just be the backbone and let her try until she fails. And if she fails and tries again, then it looks like she's a little bit passionate about it. And I want the children to believe in that.
Mm-hmm.
And so dream big and never give up, basically.
Absolutely, I cannot agree more in the reality that it's a struggle, especially for the parents that they are already conditioned with like a type of society that to be always conservative and not to push your boundaries. But this is what I really like now that I'm witnessing a lot of like initiatives driven by you or by anyone else who's like really encouraging basically this type of mindset. Explore yourself, explore your energy, explore where basically you find yourself, and at the same time not to have this kind of impact on personal level, but try to also teach others.
Yeah.
This is basically what I started to be attracted to these kind of missions, especially that we're both coming from the same country. And with the all environment and the challenges that we went through, we're always on the exploration, basically. Where can we find another activity and how we can challenge ourselves. But I'm really interested to go back a little bit, I would say, to your childhood, and because it's clear on the book, but I'm really interested to have like really kind of like what's the switch that turned your mind that okay, this is my aspiration. You got exposed to the mountains, and this is where I'm going.
Hala, the introduction of the book and how it starts isn't the full story, of course, and she was a little bit more younger, so the children can connect with it. But how it started was, so I was a very like what the standard and normal is, and I was a girl who goes to school, who had to score high in her grades, and I was very good at school. And then I like sports, so I used to play a lot on the street. So I was born in Kuwait, and then I moved to Lebanon when my family moved. My parents moved to Lebanon when I was, I think, 2 or 3 years old.
Okay.
And then being in Lebanon, I used to love being on the streets, playing with other kids, and trying everyone's toys and all that. And then we moved to the UAE, and it was a completely new environment. So I think I was 8 or 9 years old when we moved here, and I was just studying in school and just doing what a girl in my age would do
Yeah.
back then.
Yeah.
I think there's a big difference now.
Back then, I see it.
And then we went to Nepal as a family trip, and I was about 14 years old. And we flew over the Himalayas as part of the trip. It was an experience. And while we were on the plane, the pilot says, if you look outside now, we are flying above Mount Everest. Mount Everest is the highest mountain in the world. And I was just mind blown. You know, the highest mountain in the world.
Yeah.
So I was like, all the ears and eyes and looking outside the window. I came back. We went down from the flight, and they gave me a certificate that says I flew over Everest, but I did not climb it. And I'm like, no, I can't climb it.
Okay.
So I told my parents, I'm going to get a certificate that says I climbed it. And I still have that certificate till
Amazing.
date. So I completely forgot about it. And I went back to school. I was always into sports. So I was in the basketball team, and then I tried the swimming team. And I kept on trying different sports, and then I got into bungee jumping, and I was so in love into bungee jumping. And like I would like do a checklist about the highest bungee jumps around the world.
Okay.
So I've done about 6 or 7, I think. And yeah, I loved sports. And then I got into scuba diving, and I went advanced, and I wanted to become the best scuba diver. But then I saw a shark once, and I'm just like, this is extremely uncomfortable. And everyone's like, there's a shark. I'm like, well, we're dead. Like, no. And then I went into skydiving, and I started skydiving, and I had this small incident, and I just didn't like it. And it didn't feel right.
Yeah.
And I was still working in a multinational, and we had the sales kickoff meeting. I was going through this phase of my life, so I went for an exchange program in the US, and I came back, and my world just changed after coming back from the US. I questioned everything. literally everything, like
Okay.
because it was a completely different world. I was exposed to women's rights. I was exposed to everything, all concepts you can think about
Yeah.
that I wasn't exposed to it here because I was limited with the information I was
I see.
receiving. So I was going through this phase and there was a lot happening and I wasn't feeling happy with my work when I got it, and I was in finance, and I'm just like, okay, I need to climb the career ladder because that's what is expected of me.
Exactly.
And then this guy comes and start talking about his experience on Mount Everest, and then I'm like, wait, that was my dream 10 years ago. Yeah, I was 24. And I'm like, okay, I need to like figure out how to get myself to Everest. This is my way out of this job. I need to go climb Mount Everest. And then I did my research, and apparently it takes 2 months to climb. It's extremely difficult.
Yeah.
People die there. And I was intimidated after doing the research. I'm
Mhm.
like, what am I thinking about? It looks like it's extremely dangerous. So obviously you watch the movie Mount Everest, and after that you're like, like,
You have to read the book, The Into Thin Air, which is
oh,
exactly
yeah.
it's the condition of the.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, I read it on my way to Elbrus.
Oh, okay.
And you don't have to read such a book on the way there.
Exactly before you climb. So yeah, I said, you know what? I'm gonna try to climb my first mountain, and I was already 23, 24, and yeah, it turned out to be there was a trip. That was going after a month to Mount Elbrus. I was already very fit because I never stopped. I've been always into fitness.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, "Khalas, okay, I'll sign up. What does it take?" And then I just received the gear list. I'm like, what is this? There's a hammer. And what are those spikes?
Ice axe.
And then I didn't know what a crampon is.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a plastic boot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is like weird. But anyway, I went online. I Googled everything I was reading on the gear list.
Yeah.
And I understood how it functions, why it works. So I'm like, okay, let's buy them. And then you look at the prices. And I was still very young back then. And I was still making peanuts. I was
They are
starting.
expensive.
Exactly.
They are
And I'm like, geez, like those are expensive. What if I don't like the sport? Like, okay, I have a dream, but I don't know if I like it. I started skydiving and I stopped.
Yeah.
And I did scuba diving and I don't like it. And I've done other things.
True.
Okay, I rented, I think 80% of the gear. I rented my boots, ice axe, and I bought a backpack basically,
Bravo, like
and
it.
Gore-Tex
Yeah.
and jacket,
Mhm.
and I used whatever I have as like different layers,
Mhm.
because I just didn't want to go full on not knowing how I'm gonna feel about it.
Smart.
I came back, and it was like a 10 days trip, and I'm like, I was healed. I don't know how from all the things I was going through before I go. I was confident. There was serenity in my soul, in my mind, and I was able to think in a strategic way. And obviously, this is for the first month, but then you go back to default.
I didn't want to interrupt you because it becomes like a drug.
Exactly. And so you're like, if I feel like this is the best version of me.
Yeah.
And on the mountain, like, hey, the rewarding feeling on the summit and coming back from the summit, and it feels such an achievement, and it's so hard to explain it to people sometimes, because after going through all the hardship to make it all the way to the top, some people might tell you, okay, but it's just, no, you're climbing, you're putting yourself out there. But throughout the process, you're building techniques for
Absolutely.
your mind to cope with hardship, with failures, with fear, and you start learning so
Team,
much.
with like logistics, everything.
So it's very rewarding. So I'm like, you know what, this is it. I'm gonna stop everything else, since it's an expensive sport as well.
True.
And I didn't know the 7 summits. My dream was still Everest. But after Everest, my dream was to climb as much mountains as I can around the world.
Okay.
And then obviously becoming a climber, or like climbing the first mountain, and I think people might relate, whoever is climbing. You climb one of the 7 summits and everybody starts telling you, so you're going to finish the 7 summits?
Typical question.
Elbrus, Kilimanjaro, okay, you're going to Aconcagua next. So I was still that person, and no, I don't know, like, what's the 7 summits? Tell me.
Exactly. Go with the flow.
Exactly. So I'm like, oh, so Everest is one of them. So basically I did 2 now. Okay, I'm so close.
Still 5.
There's 5 to go.
That's true.
and my 7 summits journey started.
Amazing.
I climbed other mountains, of course, because I love mountaineering and being outdoors.
That's really inspiring, and I'm planning to book my ticket now because I got this kind of an addiction, especially when I moved from the corporate and decided to have the leap of faith. I decided to climb Aconcagua just to have this connection and see where are my limits. And thankfully, it was an amazing journey coming back with this energy.
Yeah.
But again, this will like fade away after a while.
That's good.
But yeah, I have potential plan, but I'm not pushing it. I would say for the Seven Summit, but let's see how it goes. But what's really interesting about is basically how you built up the resilience and you started to practice this sport, where I know the challenge technically and how you plan for it and how much is expensive for the bookings and for the preparation, and if you're lucky by having a strong team that goes with you, because I strongly believe that it is a main pillar to make the trip successful or not. But now I'm interested to go a little bit about the transition or basically the trip that you took for all these mountains. So which mountain is considered basically the most technical, mentally, and I would say physically?
You see, I get asked this question and I will say Denali.
Mm.
And no, Denali is a beautiful mountain, and it's not a walk in the park because there's a lot of crevasses
Yeah.
throughout
You
the
have to
climb.
drag all the
And you
sled.
need to be focused. So the airplane just drops you in the middle of nowhere, just snow, and it starts. First day is okay, but you have 30 kgs on your backpack and 30 kgs in your sled. And you have your shovel. You need to do everything, which is what is mountaineering, which something I genuinely love, like doing everything. You need to melt make water, so you need to melt snow, collect snow, and it's all about teamwork. We were about 7 people in the team, so we had to divide the rice, the pasta, the stoves, who does what on the next day, who needs to fix things, setting up the tents in a chaotic environment when the wind is blowing. So it teaches you a lot. In technicality, there's only the head wall probably, and like on the summit. So when I wouldn't say I've a technical mountain on high altitude where you had to rock climb and stuff like that. I've never experienced something that's too extreme, that's too hard. Usually those mountains, the routes on those mountains are open in a way where maximum climb can be 4B to 5A, something like Amadablon, for example, going to Camp 2. So I wouldn't say technical, but I would say the way you live and the amount of energy you need to put is definitely Denali and Mount Vincent and the South Pole. Like, it's a lot of hard work because you're not just there to climb and be with yourself. And you get there, you climb, and then there's a lot of work. You're a team, and you need to all work together to set up camp. You don't have a Sherpa. You don't have, I don't know, a porter.
True.
You're carrying everything on your own. It's a real proper expedition. Not to put down any other expedition, but it's the kind of expeditions that I genuinely like. So you start like digging in the snow, building the camp, setting up tents, and then you finish. And if you see the other team is struggling, you need to get there, help them, because the wind is blowing, and you build that relationship within the team.
Yeah.
So Denali has this very nice feeling of it, and it makes it hard work. So you're restless all the time, and definitely Vincent and the South Pole.
Love it. How's Tima is taking care of her health outside of the mountains? I would say on a daily basis as a lifestyle.
Look, I have a very balanced lifestyle. I enjoy eating burgers and pizzas, but I don't enjoy eating them every day. Like once a month, maybe, I don't know. And I'm not a big junk eater, for example, if we're talking about food. Working out is something that's very important to me. But I do have, just like any other humans, weeks where I don't work out. Because, for example, I'm in Dubai, I'm literally back to back from when I wake up until I'm back home, and then I need to finish stuff on my laptop till 12. So time, like, it's an opportunity cost, and I'm not here all the time.
Yeah.
So I can't work out, and I need to accept it. Before that, I used to beat myself up, and no, I didn't work out today.
Feel the guilt.
My muscles, my endurance, everything is gone. I reached to a point where, okay, I will work out. I do have a program. I know when I go back, for example, to Geneva now, what I'm going to do, and I prepared. So it's a very balanced lifestyle. I do not beat myself up. I don't go extreme with my food. I don't go extreme with my training. I keep it balanced. Of course, if I'm preparing for the trip, I start working out towards the trip. So I'm a lot into the heart rate zone. I work on my base. I build a very, very strong base. So I've been climbing for a while. I always say my body is made for the mountains, because that's what it feels like.
True.
Yeah, and even if I haven't trained in a while and you put me on a trail to go do an 8 to 12 hours hike, I'll be completely fine. And like my body it's a muscle memory. But obviously you have to train it. But
True.
sometimes even if you don't train it, it comes back. And this is why I do not panic when I don't train. But again, so I start with training on I take my average heart rate. You do the test
Yeah,
when you're
that's
running.
true.
And I train very low, so you would never see me on
Yeah,
a
then
normal
zone
day.
2 is the ideal,
Exactly.
basically.
Like I'm pulling a truck while a wheel and like I'm sweating and I can't breathe. لا, no, I need a healthy heart.
True.
So I build my base, and before the trip I start adding high intensity where I work on a 140, 145 and down, and it has worked perfectly for me. That's why I can go like for 14 hours on the mountain on and my body can make it because it's been trained to do that. It has a strong base.
Amazing.
So that's the 20% of the training.
I was going to tell you that because I want to see basically how you manage your mindset, or basically the mental toughness. I wouldn't say mental toughness. It has a negative connotation, but of course, we discussed this even before the podcast, how the mind is 80%. Actually, I give it more sometimes. How you manage this, of course, in the expeditions or in your life. It's how you look into it.
As I grow and as I practice and as I get more experience, I can realize the difference with my mindset. We always tend to go back to default in a specific situation. If something hits the fan, at the moment, how you react says it all, right? And it's all about the reflex, the reaction. You don't wanna react. You wanna have a neutral state where you're solution based. And this is what the mountains have been teaching me. So if you talk to me in 2016 when I first started, I'm still an impulsive person. I'm still someone, and okay, if I put something into my mind, I will get to it. But I will get to it even if I'm going to hurt myself along the way, along the journey, and hurt other people, and say things and do things. And if a problem happens, I'm like so into the problem, I'm overwhelmed, I'm anxious. Those things started going away. One, with therapy. I do therapy, and I only started like, I think, a year ago.
Okay.
And strictly once a week at least, to one, work on your childhood trauma, because we all have childhood trauma, and two, to become the best version of yourself, because you start realizing where are these thoughts and actions are really coming from, because sometimes we might be talking about a problem here, but if you dig deeper, there's a big problem that happened way, like in the past, and we don't even know about it. So your subconscious is acting upon it. So therapy is very important. Two, practice. So in the mountain, my mindset games, I have few hacks that I use them. So on days I'm extremely exhausted, I'm in pain, I'm tired, my body is very weak on some days, but I need to keep on going. There's no stopping. And my brain would tend to start saying, oh, I'm tired, I can't do this anymore. But I've built that mindset of there's no turning back. Like, no. And I realized that my body is not tired. It's my mind that is tired. And when I split between both and I realize it's my mind that's being weak right now, not my body, I keep on pushing. I do one step at a time. So on the mountain, I see a rock and I'm like, let's count my steps to that rock, and then we'll reconsider how tired I am. Because if I make it there, it means I'm not as tired. And it's a mind game. You keep on pushing, and then another rock. And this is where I differentiate between the long-term and the short-term goals. So I don't look at the summit, although it's so tempting. We all want to reach our goals. Our goals or our vision is the most exciting thing in our journey, right? Because I want to get there. But so we tend to lose focus in the process, and we're not enjoying the journey. And when you start looking at the short-term goals, like the next step, the next ladder, the overcoming this crevasse, it becomes fun, and it becomes easier. It doesn't look as tall, it doesn't look as hard, it's not as cold anymore because you're here now. So short-term goals instead of long-term goals. I'm thinking of all the mind hacks I do. I talk to myself instead of listening to myself. I'm very big on this. At the beginning, it felt like I'm crazy. But then you start realizing, no, it's working. No, it's a whole conversation.
True.
If I'm my best friend, and I see my best friend is fine, but I see that they are like covered with anxiety and and they're overwhelmed with all those negative feelings and they can't get out. You just need to clear that space and you talk to them.
True.
So I thought like, خلاص, we can do it. I know you're tired. For example, هلا on the South Pole, we take a break for 12 minutes between every hour. And it's like 8 hours. And every time we take a break, my fingers are just frozen. I don't even take out my gloves.
Yeah.
But I have...
The blood flow.
Exactly. So my fingers, my toes, and my nose, just frozen.
The extremities.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it hurts. I can't bend my fingers sometimes. And I need to eat, I need to drink, I need to rehydrate. So I just deal with it at the moment. And I like try to take my gloves off, do some stuff, put them back on. And then I have my mittens on. And above those mittens, I put them, there's this thing in the South Pole where you put on your ski poles that it goes in.
Yeah.
Because it's extremely cold. It's minus 55.
It's the most difficult part, just to put it back.
Exactly. And my teeth, and I'm trying to figure it out. And I don't.
put it with the string. It's annoying.
So the first day was hard. I'm like, okay, you need to suck it up, but there must be a way that we can figure this thing out. Second day, I'm like, okay, let me calculate. So I was playing some music, and like I'll put 3 songs to 4. So those are like 15 minutes because you lose track of time.
Exactly.
So it took me 3 to 4 songs to warm down my hands. So, okay, every day, every time we ski, every break, I know they're gonna get cold, and now I'm ready. Okay, yalla, I was gonna get cold now. And now we're gonna get up. I'm like, okay, let's wait. Just ski for 15 minutes because it will go back to being warm.
Exactly.
And now I trusted the process and it was getting warm every time and 15 minutes. And then I'm like, what if I convinced myself it can come down in 5 to 10 minutes? Maybe that would have been faster.
Mind over matter.
Exactly. Literally mind over matter. So
I didn't see it. Oh my God. It's like, because it's crazy.
So it works. So that's why I like the mountains, and you can test these things in other environments. But you need to be aware that you're testing them, because I'm very much into growth mindset, and I've done a coaching course for a while, and I coached other people, and I was learning from that, and that's how I'm developing my workshop through growth mindset. In situations, I say, okay, right now I'm having a fixed mindset. What would my growth mindset do instead? And all the solutions starts coming up. I realize I have so many options because I'm solution based now. I know everything has a solution. I'm ready to learn something new. I'm ready to try something new. So on the mountain, these things are maybe faster to learn.
I would say natural.
Natural and faster, لأنه it's a life and death thing.
Absolutely.
And you need to survive, and you need to quickly find solutions.
That's the interesting part, because we are conditioned in a different way, and we're not living, I would say, the natural way where you have to be on the survival mode and you pick up on things. All what you mentioned basically are amazing hacks that can be applied on real life.
Yeah.
But the funny part about basically how you set the target and you look into it, I met an amazing guy. He's a veteran mountaineer in Latin America and Argentina. He's Brazilian. And out of fun, during the recovery in the camp, I was telling him, give me the best advice you can give me now. And he told me, don't think about the summit. Exactly what you mentioned. And the second tip, bring a newspaper with you to do your number 2 on the...
Just like, is that my neck?
For me, I prefer the second one, because logistically is the best thing you can do on the mountain. And I remember we laughed about this when you posted something, basically the typical question, where do you do it?
Yeah.
And I know it's a challenge.
It is, and for us women, it's even.
I know,
because
I fully respect.
our gear, our clothes are not made like it's not accessible.
I know. That's why this is basically one of the tips or skills that we as men, we have the pee bottle that you can keep it.
But we can use pee bottle.
Yeah, but logistically, it's more practical for the guys. And this funny part that on the second day when you wake up and temperature is like becomes an ice cream.
Exactly.
Don't use as ice cream. You have to put label to make sure that no one is by mistake use it. But it's all what you mentioned, basically how you look into the small steps and not to be overwhelmed or basically, I would say, scared about basically the outcome. I wouldn't say enjoy the process, but live with the moment and see how it goes. And all this, going back to your point, on the mountain specifically, it can multiply basically how you take action, how you think, how you look into your teams, how you work as a team. A lot of elements I'm strongly believe that on the mountains, it can condition you to handle life a little bit easier. But my only concern, as you mentioned, that after 2 months of this trip, you go back to the trenches of like the society, the conditioning, the responsibility attached to it. You're vocal about your traumas, and what you mentioned is really inspiring because it's really important, especially these days, that we dig into our basically psyche and subconscious, because I'm sure everyone, in my personal opinion, who's I consider them as a high achiever, is basically based on something that triggered him to do it. Where unfortunately for the people that they are living in a good condition, they don't have this kind of like trick or something I need to achieve. So how are you on this journey? On how are you handling these kind of trauma on basically this process?
How I'm handling my traumas, as in like from the
Yeah.
childhood or what's happening now, because I'm still getting traumatized.
On daily basis we get traumatized. It's a choice now. But what you mentioned basically that we reach a point of maturity,
Yeah.
so we accept everything as it is, and our skill and mature and become wiser that how we can handle these traumas.
Okay.
But is this something that it's always giving you a drive to make sure that you are achieving stuff? Because of course we can talk about the business side of things and
Yeah.
how the challenges that comes with it. We briefly discussed it before the podcast. How you overcome it becomes easier for you because you are in a very good condition.
Yeah.
But everything comes with a negative impact, I would say. But you're okay now, so
I wouldn't say, look, we're never okay. We are all work in progress, forever.
yeah,
Because there is always space to improve. And it's up to you if you want to progress or not. And both options are completely fine.
I agree.
But I always emphasize on mental health, and I do share, and as you said, I'm vocal about my traumas because I'm trying to get everybody around me to do it, but I cannot force them because it's their journey. Because I can see, because I went through that journey and I realized how much easier my life became when I understood me properly, when I understood my past and I learned how to work with it in the present. Because I don't want to react because of something. And we might have abandonment issues, we have so many issues, insecurities, but in the situation, before I react, and I ask myself, what insecurity is this tapping into? Because my feelings are rising. I can feel I'm feeling something. And I was a very angry person. I'm someone who can get angry just like that. And now instead of getting angry, or when I feel I'm starting to get angry, I start thinking, what is this waking up in me? There is the child in me who is irritated from this specific situation or action, and I need to understand it. And when I understand it, I do not react the same way. I don't come and I start attack and get angry and make a big deal out of it. Instead, I recognize this in my head now and know, okay, that's an insecurity. It's coming because that and that and that happened. And if I react now, it's just going to make me look small because I'm taking things personal. What's really cool, you stop taking things personal because you know it's not, the people are not attacking you. It's how you interpret what you're hearing. And it's very important.
True.
And I always say, when it comes to therapy, mental health, working on yourself, imagine you break your hand. Okay, now you have a broken hand. What do you do when you break your hand?
For me, I will cry.
Okay, and after crying,
I will have to live with it. Of course, I will try to
okay,
fix it.
so you're gonna go to the hospital to try and fix it, right? You're not gonna like go ask your wife, can you please fix my hand that's broken?
I'm sure she will panic anyway.
Okay. So you will go to the hospital, you will seek professional help. And if you don't seek professional help and you decide to live with it as it is broken, you're not going to use it the same anymore. It will not function how it's supposed to function. It's not the best version of my hand needs to be strong. I need to do things. I'm doing everything with my hand during the day. And it's the same thing with our feelings and our thoughts and our actions and our mental health. It's the exact same thing. We all have scars from specific situations in our lives. And if we do not seek professional help, then how are we going to fix it? I can talk sometimes to a friend, that's one thing. But sometimes the intensity of that scar or the deepness of the scar is so deep that you really need professional help. You need someone to stitch it now. So you go to someone who's a professional and they help you cope with it until it comes back to functioning. It might not function the same, but it will function better. And I always say, Amjad, if you want to achieve the best version of yourself, you have to work on yourself, just like the gym. You have to work on your mental health. It starts with therapy, and then you go to coaching. Let's say I want to become better in my business. I do find a coach. I want to enhance my mindset. I do find a coach. هلا صار في عندك what do you call them? شفت اليوم dressing coach, hairstyle. There's different kind of coaches.
True.
And you know what? I think it's great because people are doing research and reading and
Becoming
collecting
more aware.
information
True.
about it. And when you're working with that person who have the dictionary of how to achieve or get to where you want to be, that's great. So always try to work on yourself. We're all forever work in progress. And we can always improve and become better and find better ways to do things.
I love this perspective, and I know basically that, in my opinion, the background or the scars or the trauma, you have the option to make you stronger and not to have them as basically the anchor or dragging you to negative thoughts. How do you carry yourself as now Tima, who achieved all of this? I wouldn't say on social media, but at least in the presence of others, because what you're doing now, I call it a mission, and not, oh, okay, I achieved this. You are using this with a mission. This is basically what really, personally, I attracted to it. And this is what I'm trying even to educate and teach my kids. If they want to do something, do it not with passion. You can have this argument about if it's a passion or a mission or a purpose. How do you carry yourself now with what's after this achievement? I'm really interested to hear how you're handling everything now.
I mean, I think I have a very big responsibility. I would lie to you if I tell you, oh, I'm very humble about it, and yeah, that's it. No, I want to do something with it because it will only be unfair if I take it as an experience for myself. Because I was very lucky. Not everybody can go to Antarctica and live what I lived. Not everybody can go through Everest and live what I lived because either they don't want or they can't or they're limited. There's a lot of factors that wouldn't allow you to go there.
Cool.
So being one of the very few people who have been able to do those things, okay, that's great. But it's not about I did and I did. Yeah, okay, I did. But now, what is it that I'm going to do with it to give back? And not give back in a sense, let's do charity. La. Give back, let's change mindsets. Let's empower women. Let's like upskill youth and help children develop growth mindset. Because I'm confident what you about what you expose your children to, right? If I have the best conversations with children and they have the best questions. And sometimes it's very funny because they think what I'm saying is not true until they see the real pictures. And to me, I'm just like, we need to change this mindset. True. And my mission is to, one, represent the image of a strong Arab woman. I have a passion to that.
Love it.
And that's why I'm very much into feminist. I'm trying to make people understand that it's not women being better than men. It's all about balance. When it comes to youth, I enjoy having conversations with youth. I have a brother who's 16 years old. And what I hear from him and how he lives and the things he's exposed to, I wasn't exposed to it when I was 16. I mean, we didn't have TikTok. We were starting to have Facebook, I think. And it worries me. But then when I have conversations, we speak about mindset. We speak about how he deals with bullying or his friends at school. And I find it very inspiring to hear from him. And he finds it inspiring to hear from me.
Love it.
And then when it comes to children, through the books, through the book readings, you start showing them a different perspective.
True.
And one, it's fun. I really enjoy it. And two, I know that I have planted the seed for them just to think, what if I think of something else? Because I try to say the world is yours. I don't want you to think. I used to think, oh, I'm in Dubai. I live here. This is the world is mine, and like we're in the globalization age. Through the internet, you can access the world now, but you can also travel there, go explore, reflect, understand who you are. I want everyone to achieve the best version of themselves, but I still understand everyone goes through their own journey. So I would never force it. But I will have conversations. I will deliver workshops, and I will plant those seeds. I will do books. There's so much to do with the mountains because I have it now. So this is my responsibility.
I love it. I was going to ask about what's your mission, but I think you explained it very well. So I will not tap into this question. and based on that, the book, first of all, I want you to sign it for my daughter,
Of
Ruud,
course.
because we read it, and she's now a fan of you. And
I wish I could meet her now.
yeah, she's at school. I need to
Do you
pick
know
her
what's her
up.
dream?
Say again?
What's her dream?
Her dream is to love her dad more.
Cool.
No, actually, this is the funny thing. Her name is Jude, by the way, if you want to write.
I wrote the
But the funny part, I don't like to ask the question, what do you want to be? Because this is basically where, what you mentioned is really cool, is that this is where the kids become conditioned that, okay, I was like, ask this question and I have the responsibility to answer it and become this, where not really. That's why I don't like this. So I will not ask her what do you want to be or what's your dream. I'm just gonna be around her to support her in her journey. That's my mission.
I think it's a great way to look at it, but I also think it's nice for her to explore, because when you ask what your dream is, they start thinking, what is my dream? Maybe I can have the dream.
Open the horizon, just to think.
Just to think.
Wildly.
Just to think. Maybe she wants to climb mountains. I've met this girl once she said, I want to be a dancer and I want to be the best dancer. And I want to write a book about dancing like you did. I'm like, that's so cool. I wish I go into dancing.
That's really cool. Thank you for signing, Tina. It's really amazing to have you. Where people can find you? Of course, we're gonna share all the social media handles, of course, with everything. But I would love just to hear your voice, where people can reach out to you.
So you can find me on Instagram at Mountain Gipsy, on Facebook. I'm working on my TikTok, and I have my website, timaderian.com, and I'm building my business website, which is mountaingipsy.com. So I'm everywhere. Just Google. I'm a Google away, actually, and I'm very easy to reach. I'm very open to answer any questions. Anyone who wants to climb a mountain, anyone who has a question about mindset coaching, I'm easy to reach.
Sweet. I'll put all the social media handles and the website on the show notes, so no worries about it. But again, thank you very much for being on the show. Thank you thank you everyone for tuning in, and I'm really grateful for the messages I'm receiving. I will definitely do my best to improve on the show. And special thanks to my son, 13 years old son. He's helping me now in the podcast production, on the video podcast. And you can follow us on Apple, Google, Spotify, and YouTube, where you can share, like, comment, and on superhumanswitchpodcast.com. Get your switch on. Tima, it's really a pleasure to have you here. It will not be the last conversation, by the way. We'll stay in touch for sure.
Saf, you're such a great host. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, dear. Take care.
You too.